Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us today. My name is Stephanie Barrows, and I am a health and medical coach here at Seed with Welwyn, and I'm going to be your host today. I have got the lovely Becky Bohan with us today, who is our breathwork practitioner. Who's also founded Life Design Pathway as well. And she works with us here at Seed with Welwyn in our Welwyn and St Albans team. Hi, Becky.
Hello.
I'm very much looking forward to hearing all that you have to say and sharing all that you do with us as well. So we might as well get straight into it if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so first question for you. What is, because obviously I know that you've got a very, very different background as to what you do now.
hmm
What is your journey? What led you to offer the services that you do now?
Oh gosh, it's a long one. I think it is though, isn't it? I think so. Back in 2009, 2010, I was a street lighting design engineer. So I was a design engineer, and very methodical, very practical. Worked with clients, worked with contractors, and I was obviously the designer. And so everything made sense. Everything was really easy. And then I had my daughter, and everything felt upside down. So from having complete control of everything, I had this tiny little person um, who had lots of needs, and I kind of did hypnobirthing as a way to give birth to kind of like everything I do. I research. I go in 100%. If I don't understand it, then I kind of try and become not an expert on it, but I try to understand it. So from then on, I became a gentle parenting teacher because I didn't want to kind of do, um, I wanted to learn how to calm my baby and meet my baby's needs. So within that, I started to understand the baby and the toddler's brain and the brain development, um, which was amazing. And then in 2013, when I had my second child, I had postnatal depression and anxiety. It was really, really, life circumstances meant that we'd had to leave our town where we lived, and I didn't know anybody, and everything started to feel a bit out of control. And I remember thinking, who's going to listen to me? So at the time, I had two under three at the time. And I remember thinking, who is going to listen to me as a parenting teacher when I am literally, I think probably by this time they were a bit older. Um, and when I'm screaming at my kids. I just felt like I was just not walking the talk at all. So, one thing that came up with the postnatal depression was baby wearing and having your baby close and the importance of meeting your child's needs. So we talk a lot about Maslow's hierarchy. I don't know if you've heard of that. You must have heard of that. Um, and how we can meet our needs and how that can create a good foundation for our children, which that's where that came into it. But in 2013, I had a bit of a mental health breakdown. My physical health failed, which later, after having my third child in 2016, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which explained a lot about what was going on. Um, Unfortunately, I wasn't particularly given the guidance that I needed around my mental health and around my physical health. So I was told that I could take antidepressants, but I was limited as what I could take because I was breastfeeding. In terms of my physical health, um, I kind of suggested that maybe I could look at nutrition and what was kind of holding me back. And they said no, there's not the studies to show that that would help. Anyway, I went on my own journey and I discovered a lot of holistic healing methods and trained in those, kind of like Reiki and crystal healing and meditation. And I kind of embarked on a meditation and yoga journey and discovered that actually stress was one of my biggest triggers. So if I could reduce stress, I could reduce that. And that's where breathwork came in, but on a really basic level at that point of just kind of understanding how to regulate nervous system. Um, Within that, I discovered Louise Hay as well of how you can heal your life and how you can heal your body, and beginning to understand, especially with colitis, is how our physical body holds on to emotions that we are not able to release. How our body has unmet needs and that can store in our body. And that's how the breath work comes into it as well. That if we can understand where these thoughts and feelings and beliefs are coming from, normally from the first 5 years of our life, that's how we can kind of overcome them and get better. So I've been in remission, touch wood, with ulcerative colitis since 2019. I've just had a recent colonoscopy actually, which said that there's still a real mildness there, but it's kind of nothing really. Whereas back in 2016, I'd lost so much weight. The kind of IBD nurses were telling me that potentially I'd need a colostomy bag. I've got a risk increase of bowel cancer. I would be on medication for the rest of my life, and touch wood. And this is my journey. I know that that's not going to be the same for everybody, but for me, I never took the medication and I've never needed to, and I'm symptom free. And the same with my mental health is, I've overcome that and working a lot with that, and now being able to help others do the same. So helping people that feel really stuck in kind of, they know what they need to do and they know how they want to feel, but they don't know how to get there. And quite often, because we're in our head so much, that's why we really struggle, because we're very capable. And it is predominantly women that I work with. We're very capable of knowing and understanding, but we just don't know how to kind of overcome that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that within that was a whole identity crisis. I'd gone from being a design engineer to being somebody that was recommended and headhunted and sought after, to all of a sudden being somebody's mum. And like, I didn't even have my own identity. I was like Jessie, William and Oliver's mum. I wasn't even Becky anymore, Becky Bohan. And that was interesting, because that kind of happened until 2019, I think, until I went on a meditation retreat. And then I was like, oh, kind of remembered who I am a little bit here. And then we went into lockdown, and then that was a whole nother other thing. Because that, again, that changes the trajectory of your business, doesn't it? I think for most of us, because I was just at that point, one to one, like on a more of a healing modality, like with Reiki. And I did something called Closing the Bones, where you work with the woman's posture and like kind of the hips. It's traditionally a post-birth kind of therapy, but actually I did it a lot with people that hadn't even had children. I'd worked with men around it as well, and the way that I would offer it would be taking you back to that primal stage, so that you can kind of get more of an understanding
Yeah.
in your body where it's come from.
Oh, it's so interesting. Like, and I mean, you've been on a journey, and that's for sure.
Mm-mm.
See that lots of life experience going on. But I think like there is like what I've taken from what you just said is there is a place for holistic health and these holistic like alternatives, should we say,
Yeah,
to that can help support the body system, and not one size always fits all, but it's so worth exploring, because what you can actually do for yourself can be incredibly powerful. And I know that one of the things that you always say to me is that sometimes when you crash, you at least know that you're going to blossom from that moment, because
100%.
sometimes
Yeah.
these moments are there to test us, but what comes from it is quite remarkable, and exactly what you've gone through already, and where you are now is absolutely amazing. So yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that with us as well. So in terms of what you do, like you've touched on a lot of little things that you've kind of been doing throughout the years. What is it that you do now? Like, what is it that you're offering, and what is breathwork for those that don't know?
Okay, so I mean, what I offer now is basically, which is where the life design pathway comes in, is that basically pulls in everything that I've done over the years, everything I know that works, and is formulating that into a different way of looking at things. So predominantly, I get a lot of people that come to me that are kind of stuck, or going through that identity crisis, or wanting to move forward with kind of where they are in their life. There are lots of people that come with anxiety or any kind of physical problems as well. And rather than kind of just glossing over it, so mindset work quite often doesn't work, because if you change your mindset when you're feeling a bit low again, you'll just default back to that original thought pattern. So unless you can truly get to the bottom of that, where it's coming from, and why you're thinking like that, then ultimately that's when the shift truly happens. So it's almost like we go in and reframe. I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but ultimately for me, well, the big thing is if you think about going back to where I taught from toddlers and babies, is meeting those needs. So a lot of what we come to, like the problems and the issues and the stuck feelings that we have, will come from not having our needs met as a younger version of ourselves. So when we can go back and meet that version of ourselves and meet those needs, then that almost kind of propels us forward. Well, how the breath work is different is so many of us are in our heads all of the time. Kind of that, and that is a safety mechanism. We're protecting ourselves because at some point, we didn't feel safe to do those things. So then there'll be part of us that will be fearful or stuck in procrastination or lack, to kind of go, no, don't go there, because remember when that happened before, it was too scary, or we got rejected, or whatever. So we almost build this like protection around ourselves to keep ourselves stuck in this ego place. What breath work does, and you've experienced this yourself when you've done the workshop with me or the session with me, the breath work will quieten down that monkey mind chatter, because you're focusing on your breath, and then you'll be able to come into your body, which means that you can kind of release what it is that's needing releasing in your body, and almost override that monkey chatter, and kind of go from it from there. So we can have an emotional release, we can have a physical release, but we can let go of what it is that's holding us back from that point of view. So for those people that really struggle, it's great for people, like lots of people sometimes struggle with um, overthinking before they're speaking. So they're kind of almost trying to justify what's going on before they've even opened their mouths. It takes that away from it.
Yeah, it's so good. Like I say, I've experienced it, so it's quite amazing actually, and it's not always what you actually expect it to be, which I know we're going to come on to a little bit
Yeah.
more about. But you mentioned about working with women, so can I ask you, is like who benefits from your work? Do you work with women specifically, or can you help everyone?
I can help everyone. As I say, I've worked with babies and toddlers and children as well. Um, but predominantly what I do more now is work with women. Men are a bit shyer in coming forward with it for some reason. I have worked with men and had actually probably really incredible, because men are, how can I put this nicely, quite often emotionally constipated. And I know that's being very generic, and if but they find it more difficult to tap into their emotions easily, although that is shifting and that is changing for sure. But it is predominantly women. And the great thing is with women, is, a lot, I work with a lot of mothers or people that care for others. Um, and ultimately, if you look at an average household, and again, this isn't offending anyone, I'm not kind of being feminist or anything by it, but the mums are generally, or the caregivers are generally the ones that hold everything together. So if you think of like an overflowing with mum, if mum's not feeling great or the caregiver's not feeling great, they're holding it all together. So if they're not feeling great, then everything is like, if you can imagine like a kind of, how to put it, I normally talk about cups and glasses. A lot of people talk about emptying your cup, filling your cup, sorry. I often talk about emptying your cups. If you imagine you've got two glasses and your cup is already full, and then you've got your kids coming home and they're pouring into it because they've had a bit of a day at school. And then you've got your husband or your partner coming home from work and he's had a busy day, so he's coming in and pouring into you. If you're caring for your elderly parents or whatever, they're coming in, they're pouring in. If you work in an office, for example, and somebody's having a bad day, they're pouring into you, and your cup is completely overfilling. If you're not emptying your cup, you cannot hold that space for other people. So by working with that main caregiver, by allowing them to empty their cup, means that then ripples out, because then they feel in a good place to be able to support themselves, and then that ripples out and they can support the world at a larger larger place, but ultimately their immediate surroundings as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's where the kind of self-care comes in, because it's so prominent that actually we need to be looking after ourselves and our needs first.
Yeah, I love that analogy actually, because we do often, like you say, only ever heard of that, the kind of can't pour from an empty cup. But looking at it and the way that we store emotions and everything, like you say, what you're holding, if you look at the same
Mm,
cup, it's the complete opposite, which is really interesting. So
yeah.
yeah, very different perspective. So obviously I've done some sessions with you, and I think one of my biggest one of my biggest things actually when I did my sessions with you is I kind of expected it to be purely calming and maybe kind of emotionally intense. But I actually found it really energizing as well. Like that was it, like the pace of everything was, it actually really empowered me.
Hmm.
Which is what I was really surprised at for what I kind of visualized myself doing a breathwork session for. So I'd love to ask you, what happens in a usual session with you so people would understand a bit more.
I think for me, on my journey, I've been in many dark nights of the soul times. And I said to you before, didn't I, about you brought up about actually sometimes when I suffered with depression, I was really aware of the markers and the red flags that can come up. And quite often we can become fixated on them and feeling negative. And what I wanted within my work is I didn't want people going away from the workshops that they experienced with me or the retreats or the sessions feeling really crap, because that can be something that can happen. And it's totally normal to have that, when we've been holding on for something for a really long time. So if you imagine now, like really clenching your fists, if you really clench them, so if you do it with me now and clench them really, really hard, and then clench them a bit harder and then a bit harder, that you can feel that pain, and it's almost like you can't let go. And then when you let go, it's almost a bit numb and a bit out,
Yeah,
like kind of like, so it takes a while to get that back in. And what I didn't want people to go away with feeling was that numbness. So for me, it was really important that people went away feeling energized, because I would then, for me personally on my journey, I spent probably a good 2 years in that numb state. And I
yeah,
didn't want people feeling that. So I wanted to empower people. So the whole point is when you work with the kind of mind part of yourself or the body part of yourself, is that you're not leaving on that low, you're leaving on that energized, empowered version of yourself. So when we work with the inner child parts of ourselves, what we're doing is we're going in and making them feel safe, which is the biggest key part of it. Is everyone that comes to me, like actually one of my clients said recently when I kind of asked what do you get when you work for me in the spaces that I work with, and what did they say? You hold space like a fort, like so that people are feeling safe. So that's the key part for me, is that you come and you feel safe enough that you can let go what needs to be let go. Then we empower that version of you, and then we kind of rewrite what it is that you're coming in. And that's, that's where my breathwork, I think, slightly differs with a lot of conscious connected breath. They're amazing, they're empowering, you really get that big release. But for me, it's so important that you go and you have that journey of being able to release, but also walking away feeling empowered,
yeah,
so that you're coming on that high energy. So you'll kind of go on a journey, but I'll always leave you on a more positive note.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, that's definitely what I experienced, I would have to say. So yeah. So thank you so much for that. Um, so obviously you've mentioned about kind of mindset alone not being enough.
mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So um, I think again the key part is we can all work on our mindset, and I've done that for many years. I'm not going to lie, my default in most of my life has been quite a negative person. So, as much as I try to shift my mindset, when things feel bad or things feel low, I'll often shift straight back into that negative mindset. And I've really noticed that actually, when we do that, we just kind of bring more negative things happening to us because we're stuck in this lack mindset, so to speak. So, the key part of that is to find out almost like the root cause of why we're feeling like that, so that we can shift that. And when we shift that, we shift so much around us. And again, going back to kind of the relationships that we hold or whatever else, we can have really negative relationships because of how we feel, because we're so emotionally charged around things that have happened in the past. So what I'll do is I'll take you into why do you feel like that in the first place? What need was not met that made you hold on to this story about yourself, that we could then change that. So if you think the obviously we've got the hippocampus and the amygdala in our brain, what happens when we feel stressed, the hippocampus gets flooded with cortisol. And if you think of the hippocampus as like the librarian of your thoughts and feelings, what that does is it almost kind of as a like a librarian puts them in the right genres or the right areas or anything else, when that part of your brain is completely flooded, the hippocampus can't do its work, so it can't put those thoughts into the thing. So then we end up with lots of thoughts, kind of not intrusively, but certainly running the show in the background, which is where they become unconscious thoughts or feelings. And so what I do is we create that safety version, and then we will find out where that original thought has come from. And it's really quick. When you think of something, it's quite normally it's not what you think it is either. So it's, but again, it generally goes back to unmet needs, and we meet the needs of that version, that younger version of ourselves. We can't change history. That's impossible, but we can certainly change how we feel about it within our bodies and within ourselves. And the kind of then as we're changing that, then that's when the shifts happen. So that's more than the mindset side of it. So we can't just change the mindset. We kind of find out where that originated from, and then we will kind of reframe it, rewire it, so to speak. Yeah, and work around that. And again, that's where that comes into the mind and the body, and the soul aspect of it is that then we're looking at, if the things that I want to be doing, if I was like, if I had that magic wand, so to speak, what are those steps? What habits could I be building right now? So we're giving practical action as well. So not just a nice kind of fairy future vision or a mood board. We're looking at what would we be doing? How would we be behaving? How would we act if we were already that version of ourselves, and then bring that in as well to them. So it's almost like that future proofing, but on an achievable level, not a kind of 10K month or living
Yeah.
in a big mansion or whatever else. It's more about the feelings of how
Mm.
we kind of
Yeah.
would be that version of ourselves.
And like you say, it's so much bigger than just one small thing, isn't it? You know, our mindset alone is such, it's a huge topic in itself. So many different
Yeah.
layers, so many different aspects. So you know, doing that kind of work, it takes work, and it's not just simple as saying just be positive.
No.
No, it's that doesn't solve anything when, especially when a lot of, like you say, a lot of our things come from childhood and have so
Yeah.
many layers of all those years since childhood as well. Yeah, so it's a really interesting thing.
I
So
think it's really hard as well when somebody says to you just be positive. It's really disempowering when we're stuck in that, because I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and thinks, right, I want to be purposely negative today. I want to really manifest bad things happening in my life. I'm stuck. I think I'll procrastinate a bit more. You know,
yeah,
we don't generally know why we're doing these things, but that's where my work comes in, is we kind of go, okay, so you keep doing this and it's a pattern. Let's find out why this pattern exists in the first place.
yeah, and then actually work to deal with it, which
Yeah.
is. So you've mentioned obviously, like, because obviously you've got lots of different things that you bring into the life design pathway.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned already about kind of how you feel that people leave your sessions with breath work and stuff. Is there anything else that kind of makes your approach unique to you and maybe a bit different?
I think just that understanding. So that time when I was working on kind of like an attachment parenting and a gentle parenting is so I really got, and I really helped people with the long-term parenting goals. So quite often with parenting, it's about the instant reward, the instant action, the instant kind of result, so to speak. So if you go back to kind of things like the naughty step and time out and reward charts and things like that. What I found over the years is that actually they don't work, because what you then do is you build up a conditioning around, if I do this behavior, then I get this. If I do this behavior, then that happens. If I'm naughty, then I have to sit on my own with these big emotions and nobody's there to help me process them. And so understanding that then took me back to kind of understanding why my behaviors were a big thing, like rejection was a big thing about them. And I won't go into details about my life, but you kind of go, oh, that makes sense, because as an egocentric 3-year-old, what actually happened was not how I know as an adult is, the thing, but actually as a sorry, as a 3-year-old, I would have made it, because you don't think that there's another perspective other than your own. So it's understanding that actually it's no one's fault, it's not a parent's fault, it's not okay, it's actually just our perception of the world. And so if we can change our perception of the world and be the adult that we needed in that moment, then we can go and nurture that part of ourselves from where we are now and say, look, this is, what do you need in this moment? And I think that's key to kind of as adults or anything in general is what do we need? What did I need in that moment to feel safe? What did I need in that moment to feel loved? And then create that. And then that changes easy for me to say, trajectory of how we're living our lives now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. I really do. And this is the thing, like I was talking to somebody yesterday about how kind of we sometimes carry generations of
Mm,
things and we pass them all down to our children and then they pass them to their children, but they can kind of sometimes start way generations back, and
yeah,
because of the behavior patterns and the emotions but time evolves through that as well. So awareness is so key. And I think
yeah.
that's huge what you talk
And
about.
we would never understand that, as a kind of everyday. I did a lot of work. I did 2 years worth of work working with the ancestral wound, like the ancestors, and how, like with the epigenetics, that can carry as we carry eye color, hair color, we can also carry trauma. And if
Yeah.
you think, and I love this, I remember finding this out. So if you think of a fetus when they're brought like growing inside the mother's womb for a female, you get at 20 weeks, you get all of your eggs when you're inside in the womb. So if you think I was actually created in my grandmother's womb.
Yeah, it's
I've lived
amazing.
in so for not just from my mum, but also from my grandmother. And if you think, well, actually, in my grandmother's womb, that was it's less than 100 years ago, and actually, what they went through with the Second World War or in the First World War or whatever, we couldn't even imagine what that is. But we're still stuck in that cycle and not just that, the behavior of the conditioning. So like rationing and, men. And this is where the men win is so key because they were just expendable because they just went to fight for their king and country.
Yeah,
And, how does that make you feel as a man? Well, your job is to provide, your job is to support your loved ones, and the women have to do all of that and, kind of be the male part when they're not there. And it goes on. And that in itself is 100 years only. If you go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, men weren't actually there quite a lot.
yeah.
They were
It's,
off the war and then they'd come back and, it's really interesting. That's a whole nother
yeah,
podcast all on its own.
we're going on a complete tangent there.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to bring it back then, if you just for our listeners that are listening now, what advice would you give to anyone who kind of at the moment feels completely stuck? Maybe a
Mm.
couple of tips that you could give them to just help them maybe know where to start or what they could do for themselves.
I think so when I run something called an empower hour, and within those, the very first thing that we do is we slow everything down and you stop. And obviously, a box breath is a really good way of just coming out of your head. That's the key part to it is that we're is coming out of your head, coming into your body, just kind of touching your heart space, just so that you're coming back into your body with the breath. But I think the ultimate thing is asking what do you need, and this works with our kids as well as just us, is really just having that pause, that in that moment, and just taking that breath, and just asking yourself, what do I need right now to feel a bit better? And I think, a lot of people again will overthink this, but quite often if you go back to toddlers, when what do you need, it's quite often a drink, food, rest, some nurturing, a break, or it can be those really basic, simple things, a hug. And, there might not be somebody that's available to hug you, so you can just hug yourself and just give yourself that conscious cuddle, like that conscious love, going back to kind of meeting our own needs. Um, so yeah, I think that's just the instant
Yeah.
answer is to just come again back into your body. What does your body need in this moment to feel
Yeah.
better? And I think we're just so used to um, pushing on, carrying on, getting it done, doing these things in a very kind of masculine way that actually that's when our needs start becoming depleted. And that's when we can start to feel stuck because everything can feel so overwhelming or too much. Whereas if we can just really slow it down and take it back to the basics, you can't do anything if your nervous system is dysregulated.
Yeah,
So just doing those basic fundamentals of taking a breath, checking your body temperature, even, am I warm? Am I cold? Am I comfortable? Have I had enough to drink today? Have enough to eat today? Have I had enough rest? So think of a toddler or a baby,
yeah,
and kind of those basic fundamental needs. And only from then, so you can do all the healing work in the world. But if you are not feeling safe, you're not going to be able to open up to be able to move forward in that.
yeah. It's so key. And I often do, like when I kind of do some wellness workshops, I often talk about people when they're kind of on the brink of burnout and, they're commuting from work. Exactly what you've just said there. I'll kind of often say, we so often we'll leave work and we're still doing it. We're still in
Mm.
work up here. We're constantly all the time. You're on that train. You can't even remember getting on the train. You've done that journey. And it is as simple as just starting to get into your body and into your surroundings, what you're thinking, what the sensations you have, what can you even see around you, what's the name of that shop that you've just walked past. It's getting
Yeah.
yourself out of your head, isn't it, and into your body, and that can sometimes be all you need, just to take a moment
Yeah.
and just
I
take.
think I think that's it, isn't it? It's that like I always talk about a purposeful pause.
Yeah,
We can tell ourselves to take a pause, we can sit down, but so quickly we just reach for our phone, and what we end up doing is numbing out. So then we're suppressing, we're avoiding. Whereas if we're taking a purposeful pause, and like you say, what can we see around us? Can you see a tree? Can you see the ground beneath you? Can you see the sky? Like having that purposeful moment, that purposeful intention, can create that shift.
yeah. And it's funny because I was talking to my husband about this. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but these kind of pauses, and we were talking about kind of the way the world has gone as well, and even like for our children that living at like constant is instant gratification, isn't
Oh
it? It's like
God,
everything
yeah.
is so readily available, and we were starting to notice that when we were watching something on the TV. You don't often get, like, you went through this period where you don't get adverts anymore. But
Yeah.
when we watch, I love watching a movie on a TV because I feel like it's live. My husband always say takes a mickey out of me, but I do. I love it. I just think it reminds me of being younger. Of like you had those adverts where you had to pop off and get a quick drink, or Whereas now, what you find happening is an advert comes on and you pick up the phone, and
Yeah.
then the program goes back on, then you straight back in, and it's like you don't get a moment to just
No,
take a break. And so
no.
it is that you talking about purposeful pause is so integral in so many different ways as well. So yeah, so I just went off on a bit of tangent there. But I would love to ask you, because we're all in the health and wellness industry,
Uh-huh.
as we're health and wellness practitioners, and we always talk about kind of practicing what you preach. And you also have mentioned today about kind of your own challenges that you've had along the way. Like, how do you manage your own well-being? You're balancing a family life. You've got children that, have different needs as well, and meeting their needs, and you're running a business. So what sorts of things do you do to keep yourself, your own well-being in check?
I think it's interesting because I think, and I did this for a really long time as well, as a healer or a kind of well-being person, that you think that you're going to do this course or do that, and your work's going to be done, and you're going to dramatically feel amazing, and never have to struggle again. But it doesn't. The work's never done, so to speak. If you imagine each time you do something new, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and there becomes a new level of things that you have to deal with. And it can be, I always like it's the new level new devil, or the new level old devil. So it'd be the same thing that comes back, but just because you're trying to step out that comfort zone and stretch a bit more. Or it's a new comfort zone, so there's a new thing coming up. However, the thing that I think for me is, again, being present, trying to be present, putting that phone down, getting out in nature. Journaling is a big one for me. So have you ever heard of left hand, right hand journaling?
I have heard of it. Yes, I have never done it though.
Okay, so when you're in your head quite a lot, quite often, and even things like the morning pages from the Artist Way was a really good one as well. So the left hand, right hand is you write a question with your dominant hand and you answer it with your left. So I take my clients on that journey when we do kind of journaling prompts or whatever in the Seasons of the Soul membership, and it's really interesting because, again, it's not always what we think that the problem is. I think we sometimes think that it's going to be this, but actually because what you're doing with the right hand, you're asking the question, the left hand, you're so busy trying to occupy your hand, that the answers that come through are quite often not what you think they are.
It's really
So
interesting.
it's again, it's finding that answer. So journaling's a big one for me. I love kind of yoga, Pilates. I think moving your body is key, really moving your body, because again it can make you feel quite like, my husband is not so motivated to go to the gym, but again, going back to that, coming through that kind of darkness part of it, if we can recognize that the resistance is there because our body's trying to protect us, if we can go through that resistance, the end result is that we feel amazing at the end of it. So like, I never come away from the gym thinking, oh, I wish I didn't go. I
Yeah,
can never come away from a class or a kind of moving my body thinking, oh God, I wish I didn't do that. Like, I went to a day rave on Sunday, which is incredible. And I just felt so energized again. So it's just kind of lifting your spirits. It could be putting a song on really loud and dancing for 3 minutes. It's moving
yeah,
your body for 3 minutes. It could be reading a paragraph of a book, and just has that motivational part of it. It could be listening to a podcast. It's just finding ways to pick yourself up so that you're kind of coming out. I know I said about mindset work earlier, but there's an element in that of that natural shift, or just, that breath, taking again, to grounding yourself, taking yourself back to your body, taking yourself back to that breath.
yeah. Oh, it's so good. So if before we finish up, I'd love to ask you if anyone could kind of remember one thing from our conversation today, what would you hope that it would be?
To meet your needs first.
Love that. Absolutely love that. And it's that awareness to know what they are, isn't it? And to explore
Yeah,
them.
I think it's not selfish. You know, I run retreats called self-care, self-love, which came from my own burnout. Um, and kind of meeting your needs again is the ethos of a lot of the things that I offer. But I think we get so caught up in not being able to take that pause because we feel lazy or we've got too much to do. But I think if we don't take that pause, our body can then force us into it,
Yeah.
so that we end up getting sick, or things go wrong, so then we have to stop and take that stock. But actually, if we purposely, again going back to that purposely pause, if we purposely take a moment for yourself and ask yourself, what do I need in this moment, um that is, you're taking care of your needs.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so lastly, I'd love to say, what is next for you? What sorts of things do you have on offer? Have you got programs? What have you got available? And also, where can people find you and find this information?
So people can find me on Instagram, under Becky Bohan, the Life Design Guide. I've got a website, obviously, which is just beckybohan.com, or just around locally as well. I've got a few bits in the pipeline. So my next big thing that I'm really excited about, although it's a little way off, but purposely because of the summer holidays, because we're going to be putting our kids at first, or the summer holidays, or whatever else. So on the 21st of October, I've got my next retreat, the self-care, self-love retreat. And so it is a Wednesday, but the whole point is that you take a day off to make time for yourself, and that's at Cucumber Fields. So you can find out about that a bit more. It's actually not been released publicly yet, so you're kind of hearing that here first. So the tickets are on like a pre-sale price at the moment, but there's really limited space. I think people that came last time have predominantly booked, so there's kind of a big chunk gone already. Every week I run, or a membership group called Seasons of the Soul. So we're not delving deep in the Seasons of the Soul. It's almost a bit more like a maintenance program, and within that you get breath work, you get kind of working with the unmet needs, a sharing circle. It's a really beautiful community. And I've seen, actually, it was our birthday yesterday, well, on the 15th of July, where we journeyed for the first year. And actually, the reflection part was beautiful, like where these people were last year as to where they are now. When we looked back, they were achieving everything that they set out to achieve and more. It's incredible. If you just want to bust through something quite quickly, I offer something called an Empower Hour, and you can again choose to work with the mind or the body on that. So you can do a breathwork session, or we can go into kind of that inner child kind of reframe and rediscover on that. Um, yeah, and then in September I've got a program coming, which will be like a 12-week program, which will work with the whole life design pathway. So we'll be literally going really deep, really back to basics. So you can kind of go surface level, you can go deep. And then the days in between, like the day retreats and stuff, will be just taking you on that journey.
Amazing. It's really exciting. So I most definitely suggest that everybody follows Becky and just keeps up to date with whatever she has going on. So, but thank you so much for sharing your time with us here today, Becky. It's been lovely
Thank
chatting to you.
you.
And we will hopefully speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much for listening, guys.